Lots of people are interested in the South Pacific. So where are we going today?
We are going to Australia, New Zealand today.
On Dream Travel Share Unpacked.
If you'd like to receive an email version of today's show, along with our weekly travel opportunities, click on the link below to join our mailing list. We promise to only send you one email a week every Friday. You can unsubscribe at any time, and we won't share your email address with anyone else.
So why is Australia and New Zealand so popular?
Well, two reasons, really. So one, they were closed longer during the pandemic. So they didn't open up for Europe, and just about everywhere else were open before Australia and New Zealand. So there is a bit of pent-up demand there because people weren't able to go there for 2.5 years. The other thing is it's perceived, and I think justifiably so, it's perceived as being safe and easy to travel, and it is in fact both those things.
When do you think people should go to Australia and New Zealand?
Well, it's a year-round destination. You can go at any time. The cruise ship season generally runs from October through March. So it's the ships that are in Alaska in the Alaska cruise season. Those ships end up in Australia in our winter months, which is of course summer in Australia, New Zealand. But there are cruise ships that are year round in Australia, New Zealand. So you can go there at any time. There's just way more of them October through March.
Okay. What are the different types of Australia, New Zealand cruises?
Right. So there's actually 5 different sort of like broad itineraries, if you like. So the most common one is Australia, New Zealand. So you start in usually Sydney, sometimes Melbourne. You do maybe one other port stop in Australia, you head across the Tasman Sea, you do half a dozen stops in New Zealand, and you either finish in Auckland or sometimes they go round trip out of Sydney. So that's the most common one. That's probably more than half our clients that end up in Australia, New Zealand do something that resembles that. There are Australia, New Zealand, usually it's more Australia and the Pacific Islands. So those are ones that, again, they often start in Sydney, maybe Brisbane, and they zip out to Fiji, Rarotonga, the South Pacific Islands on that side of the date line.
Okay.
And likewise, there are similar ones to that. They run up the east coast of Australia. So let's say you leave again Sydney or sometimes Brisbane, you run up the Queensland coast, which is along the Barrier Reef, and you will finish either in Bali, often Indonesia, or Singapore. So, that Southeast Asian corner. And in repositioning cruises, you can keep going, right? So in repositioning season, you can go from Sydney, you start sailing north, you sail up through Asia, you get into, Thailand, over to Korea, South Korea, Japan, and then you carry on to Alaska and finish in Vancouver, Seattle. So you can, that's an extreme version.
Yes.
The fourth type that is there's usually 1 or 2 of these a year, and that's about it. And it's a circumnavigation around Australia. And so that's when you would say go Sydney round trip all the way around the outside of Australia. The reason, though, there's not as many of those is because it's a long itinerary. It's a minimum 28 days. It's a month. And the reason for that is Australia is huge. So Australia is the same size as the lower 48 states. The difference is, of course, in the lower 48 states, there's 350 or 360 million people. And I think in Australia, there's 25 million in the whole country. And most of them live in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. So you're covering a lot of vast open space, and there's not a place to stop. Like there's not a lot of places to dock up. So meaning that if you like sea days, this is a fantastic itinerary.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a port every day, circumnavigating Australia might not be the best choice for you. And the most recent itinerary that we're seeing in Australia is an expedition cruise itinerary, and it's the Kimberley Coast. So again, this will make way more sense if you get a map of Australia out. But Western Australia is a big empty red desert. I spent a couple of months there many years ago. There's not much there. It's beautiful in the way that a desert is, but it's remote. And so the Kimberley Coast is the space between Darwin, which is on the north coast of Australia, and Broome, which is about halfway between Darwin and Perth. And I can tell you, I did it by bus.
Oh.
Yeah. Way better to do it on an expedition ship. That's the way to see that. It's a spectacular part of the world. But that's the latest thing is the Kimberley Coast. If you hear Kimberley Coast, it's Western Australia.
Okay. And expedition ships.
Yep.
Okay. So can we look at Australia first? What is there to see in Australia?
Sure. So there's the Sydney is truly one of the great harbor cities in the world. It ranks up there with Rio de Janeiro and Hong Kong, just in terms of its natural harbor. It's naturally spectacular. As an urban place, really cool too. Um, Arguably, Melbourne has kind of got a funkier vibe to it, but Melbourne's also a bit more difficult to get to. But Sydney is worth a couple of days for sure. If you're there, it's an interesting city, a great place to see. The other two things I would argue that are unique to Australia are Ayers Rock, so now called Uluru, in the middle, the big red desert. And again, I did it by car. It's a million miles from anywhere. You will go by plane because it's just too far away to do any other way. So that is unique to Australia. Getting into Alice Springs, Ayers Rock area is something you're not going to get elsewhere. It's different than our deserts over here. It's very unique. And the other thing is, of course, the Barrier Reef. So the Great Barrier Reef is really like nothing else on the planet. Um, and I would argue, unless you're going to put your face in the water, it's probably not worth the trip. It's a beautiful beach, don't get me wrong. It's incredible. Like that northern Queensland coast is naturally spectacular. But unless you're going, you don't have to go scuba diving or anything like that. You can just go snorkeling and you will be amazed. But if you're not that person, if you're not the person that's going to put your face in the water, you can give it a miss. There are plenty of nice beaches closer in the world, and there are maybe because again, anytime you go over there, it's a trade-off between time and money and distance and all that other stuff. So if you put your face in the water, totally worth it. If you're just going to see a nice beach, give it a miss.
Okay, good information. How about New Zealand?
Yeah, New Zealand is, so I should disclose here. I lived in Australia for a year when I was a much younger fellow. And I worked at World Expo 88 and then spent the next several months traveling around Australia. And then on my way home, I stopped in New Zealand for 6 weeks and fell in love with the place. And I've been back to New Zealand twice. Um,
Ah,
and in some ways I'm thinking, oh, maybe I was thinking at the time, maybe I should have spent a year in New Zealand and spent 6 or 7 weeks in Australia. So, but that's just me. So, I mean, I find New Zealand to be I don't think there's any doubt it's one of the most naturally spectacular places in the world. It's got a huge diversity of geography. You get north of Auckland and it's very tropical. So there's palm trees, big, beaches and all that sort of thing. And if you go down to the South Island, and New Zealand's not a very big country. I forget it would probably equate to like maybe Colorado in terms of its land area. Uh, I'm guessing at that, by the way, so I reserve the right to be corrected. But it's not very big, but big enough that it's got this incredible diversity, very tropical in the north. The south, there's glaciers, on volcanoes and
oh, wow.
fjords like you see in Alaska or the Norway coast. It's pretty cool. And where New Zealand first started getting a lot of buzz was maybe 15 or more years ago when the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the film came out, because just about all of it was filmed in New Zealand.
All right. So what cruise lines can you tell us go there?
Yeah, literally all the cruise lines are there. They really are. So the mega ship lines are all there. The small ship cruise lines, everybody is in Australia, New Zealand for at least part of the year. Some of them are down there year round, as I was mentioning earlier. So we were talking about Oceania earlier this month, and we have a private sale running with them. They have 3 vessels, if you can believe it. Out of an 8-vessel fleet, they have 3 vessels in Australia in that season, in the sort of October through March cruise ship season there. So Vista and Riviera, those are both on the 1,200 person Oceania ships are there, and Regatta is also there. So one of the R class 680 person vessels is there as well. Literally all the other cruise lines is there. Viking's got two ships down there. Seabourn's got one. Silversea's got two. It's Regent's got at least one there. I'd have to go back and check, but all of the cruise lines we put our people on, they're all in Australia, New Zealand.
Okay, good to know. And are there any river cruises there?
No, no, no. And I'm just trying to think. I mean, there certainly are rivers in both countries. I don't think the Brisbane River might be able to handle a river boat, but because it's probably big enough, but there's none there. No.
Can you give us some ideas for making the most of a trip to Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, the first thing would be spend as long as you can. It's just a big commitment to get there, both in time and expense. So again, the big cities to fly off the West Coast to get to Australia, New Zealand are LA, San Francisco, and Vancouver. So those are the big gateways out of North America to get there. And from any of those cities, it's 14, 15 hours to Auckland or to Sydney. So and the expenses there, of course, because you're flying a long way too. So spend as long as you can because there's a big commitment in getting down there. So do that part. The other thing to keep in mind is depending on what you like to do when you're on vacation, it is a new world destination. So I mentioned that simply because it's different than going to Europe where you're, or Asia where you're seeing or even Africa for that matter, where you're seeing remnants of centuries old civilizations. So there have been civilizations in Australia and New Zealand for centuries, but they're indigenous. So the Maori in New Zealand and the Aborigines in Australia. And those cultures are interesting and fascinating for certain people, the same way North American indigenous people's cultures are interesting for many. But it's not like going to Europe where you're going to see these artifacts and historical sites and Roman ruins or Greek ruins and all that other stuff. So just calibrate yourself accordingly. It is a new world destination. It's a lot like traveling in North America, although they talk English funny down there. They speak differently than we do. So I think you want to go there for the natural diversity, the natural part. And again, I do think in both countries, the indigenous cultures there are both interesting in their own way.
So what are we talking about on Dream Travel Share Unpacked next week?
We're going to take a look at over-tourism and how we hear all kinds of nonsense in the news about it. So we're going to take a look at what is happening and what you might be able to do if you're worried about that, to mitigate that.
Sounds great. Look forward to it.
We'll talk to you then.
Bye for now.
If you enjoyed this video blog, it really helps us when you like or better yet subscribe to our channel so that we know the best content to produce for you. If you want to book a cruise or packaged land vacation, then we'd love to help you out. We know the products and destinations very well and we can always get you something not available on direct bookings. Our coordinates are in the notes below. Also, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, you get one email a week every Friday with some commentary and some different deals that we're seeing in the marketplace. We don't share your information with anyone else, and if you decide it's not for you, then we're sorry to see you go, but there's an unsubscribe button at the bottom of every email. See you next time.